Oh, Rick, here we are.
Yep.
If 2020 could not get any worse. I know everybody's tired of hearing about it, but man, everything's on fire all around us, by your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. You're Belinda. It's crazy.
Oh,
I was on a phone call yesterday and looking out my front window and I see this big tanker jet flying over the house. I'm like, wait a minute now.
yeah. What the hell's going
Yeah.
on? Yeah,
Yeah.
I was sitting here, I have a horse for those people who don't know, and I've had him for 20 years. And I used to have him in Silverado Canyon for about 15 years. And then I moved him to Brea Canyon right across from Carbon Canyon Park. And so we have evacuated quite a few times. And before that, I used to work at the Silverado Children's Center, and we had to vacate from there quite a few times. So yesterday I was sitting here and I just heard about the fire. I don't know, it was like 2 o'clock over by that way. And the winds were just wicked. And Tim said, you better go before they close the road down. So I went, and by about 10 o'clock, we could, the fire was glowing in the sky behind the hill. And so we said, we better get out of here.
Yeah.
Normally around a barn, it's a pretty defensible space. It's pretty cleared. But the smoke and the stress to the animals is not a good idea. Yeah. So you gotta scram out of there. And we don't have a lot of large animals anymore in Orange County, but the whole evacuation has developed so much over the years. It used to be just, to each his own. You run in there, you get your horse, you get the hell out of Dodge, But now it's gotten really sophisticated, and there's classes you can take at the county to learn how to organize an evacuation, large animal evacuation. And so you could really find yourself to be a helper in that kind of a situation. Like this gal yesterday at our barn, she had a map of the barn on a big whiteboard, because I didn't even know our barn had a different letter for each, like barn A, B.
Oh, okay.
And so she had it all broken down, like who's going to put the labels on the halters, who's going to bring the horses to the trailer, who's going to drive the trailers out. Once we we're going to go to Brea Sports Park. Once we go to the park, who's going to hold the horses, who's coming back for the second load. It was really, really
pretty organized.
It was really organized. And at the last minute, we sort of changed what our goals were for our destination. Instead of being sort of a temporary thing, this is going to last a little while here. So there's a network of people that all share information. And Industry Hills, they have a big event center there for equine, and they have I don't know, Rick. I think it's 200 stalls. I'm going to post a video.
Wow, I had no idea.
When it's all over. And so the city of Industry owns the place, and they said, come on over. And it's gated, it's guarded, because that's a concern, because people can steal your animals while you're, there's predators. It's like looting, And so it's gated, it's guarded, and the city of Industry has been amazing. They gave us shavings for the stall. They've got a helper there to help with mucking and all this kind of stuff. And so, the stuff has hit the fan, but I think we've landed softly. So we're just hoping that nobody else burns down, because, man, I just can't even imagine.
Well, it seems like it's under control, at least in terms of getting to dwellings and other property. It seems like it's mostly now in the hills, and I guess as contained as you can be given the shifting winds and the environment that we're in. But it seems like they got to have a handle on it. Best you can.
Geez Louise. Well, speaking of homes, that's why we're here. We're here to talk about real estate. And I've noticed over my 22 years that I've been a realtor that homeownership, when I first started, it seemed like people stayed in their house 3 to 5 years. Right. And now I feel like it's more like 7 to 10 years. It seems to be sort of the average. And I have sort of a bold prediction. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about what you've seen in your lifetime in the business. But I think with these interest rates being so wicked low that you are going to have to pry a house out of someone's hands. Like,
yeah,
it's so affordable. Like, I was crunching some numbers over the weekend for somebody, and it's like, they had a 20% down payment, but they're going to buy a $700,000 house, and it was like $3,000 a month, and
yeah,
like, that's a better deal than renting. I mean, I feel like we're going to have a housing shortage for a really long time because nobody's going to want to sell. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think you're right about that. So, I mean, I've been at this, as you know, a long time too. And it used to be every 3 to 5 years. It was almost like clockwork, right? And then you have to look, I think, in my opinion, the history of the housing market. And you look back when we had the housing recession back, 10 years ago now, I think maybe longer, lose track of time. But, people were moving then because they were, prior to that time, they were buying houses with very low down payments, stated income, loans. They'd never qualified for the house to begin with. And so when those payments caught up with them, they were forced to move, short sales, foreclosures, and so on. So that created a different dynamic. But really in the last 10 or 12 years, buyers that have bought homes qualified for the mortgages. Now they're refinancing to lower rates. Right. So now they're saving $300, $400, or $500 a month on their payment. And so the idea of moving to the next house is a different proposition now, because they're going to pay a lot more money for a bigger house than the current house they've got. So I think for people to move, they have to have a really good motivating reason. Either they're buying down in the house, they're relocating, they have some other reason to have to move. Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what you said too about buying down, I think that's very relevant, because I feel like I feel like their payments are so affordable that instead of selling, because honestly, let's really talk turkey here. Okay. If you go to sell your house, you have to pay a commission and you have to pay closing costs, right? So that's anywhere between, let's say, 6 and 8% is what you're going to cost, what you're going to spend to sell your house. So you take the value of your house and you times it by what it's going to cost to sell your house. And you say, well, if I put that money into my house, would it be the house that I've always wanted, or would it meet my criteria for a move up house? I mean, I think that we'll see. I mean, the construction part of the market has been really busy. Like, if you drive down to the more sort of, affluent parts of the coastal towns, it's loaded with pickup trucks and people getting work done on their house. But I just don't see this this inventory problem going away anytime soon. I think it's...
No, you're right about that. You're right. People are improving. They're deciding to stay in their house and improve their homes rather than move to find that improvement, right?
Yeah.
And so I think for the next few years out, this is kind of going to be the market in terms of the inventory levels. So what does that mean for us? What does it mean for home buyers and homeowners, right? And so I think what that means for us in the business is that we're going to be in a very stable housing environment where property values will continue to go up. And I think we talked about this a while back. I think the projection is about a 5% a year appreciation in homes.
That's a real normal, healthy.
Yeah, it's a healthy market, right? So over time, it makes sense. And so, I talk to people and they go, well, when the housing market crashes, let me know. And guess what? That's just not going to happen, because it's about supply and demand, right? And so if there's not enough houses in the market, there's always going to be a strong housing market in terms of values.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I think the message of the week is to find a house that you can imagine staying, 5 to 10 years at and living very comfortably, because, it's the most affordable time ever to do that. And, who knows, you might not move. You might just add on and stay a while and that sort of thing.
That's happening a lot.
Dude, if you got a 2.87 fixed interest rate for 30 years, I mean, who's going to give that up, right?
Not likely, unless they have to move for some reason, right?
I know.
So and I don't think we're going to see it, and we're not going to see a wave of foreclosures. That's just not in the cards. And the reason is, lenders learned from the last experience a dozen years ago, right?
Right.
And it used to be years and years ago, if you were behind on your house payment for whatever reason, 90 days, you were in default and you were out.
Yeah.
Right. Nowadays, lenders are trained and they're not motivated by foreclosures. They will do whatever it takes through forbearance, through forgiveness, through other means to keep people in their homes and not foreclose.
Right.
And so, a buyer, a homeowner potentially has at least a year, reasonably within a year, to work out some sort of an agreement to stay in their house. So if someone were to fall behind for some reason, they're not going to get the boot. They're going to have at least a year to work it out. And usually they work it out within that year. They want to stay.
Yeah, nobody wants that blood on their hands. The banks don't.
They don't want it. They don't want to go through that.
I mean, somebody would have to, I think at this point, they would just have to totally give up, not make a phone call, not make an effort. The bank doesn't hear from you for 5 years. I mean, that might be exaggerating, but you know what I mean?
Well, kind of true though. I mean, the lenders have no motivation. They have no interest in foreclosing. It's expensive. It's a drawn out process. No one wins.
Bad PR.
They'd rather just find ways to keep you in your house and work it out. So, so for that reason as well, we're not going to see, a glut of housing in the market or a housing recession.
Right. I agree. All right, Rick, I appreciate your time this week, and stay safe, stay healthy, and
you too, Megan. Thanks.
Don't go jogging or anything, because there are
I know, right? I think I'm kind of homebound.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not heading out, that's for sure.
No. All right, I will talk to you soon.
All right, Megan. Thanks. See you later. Bye-bye.